Good morning, good day, good evening. In today's video, we've got some tragic and explosive news to break down. 2 National Guard soldiers were shot just blocks away from the White House and are currently in critical condition. At the same time, the Georgia election interference case is officially over, dealing what looks like the final blow to one of the biggest lawfare campaigns against President Trump. Let's get into the clip, and I'll break it down.
Where a focus will turn to whether these guardsmen were specifically targeted. If that's the case, it would fit with what we've been hearing from law enforcement officials for a number of months now, that some political flashpoints in the country, whether that's immigration policies by the administration, the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, even amid a tenuous ceasefire, those kinds of flashpoints have made people in uniform, be they military, law enforcement, government officials, people in uniform have increasingly been targets, and that is going to be one focus of the investigation going forward, Kira.
The media is already spinning, social media is going crazy, and there are conflicting reports everywhere. So today we're going to cut through the noise, walk through what actually happened, and then talk about the bigger problem nobody wants to admit: our broken vetting system and the rhetoric that's radicalizing people. Let's start with the shooting. 2 National Guard troops, deployed in D.C. as part of the broader federal law and order posture, were ambushed and shot in broad daylight, just a few blocks from the White House. You had helicopters in the air, a medevac rushing one of the soldiers out, streets blocked off, SWAT, and federal agents swarming the area. This wasn't some random scuffle. Authorities are already calling it a targeted attack. And right away, before the blood is even dry, what do we start hearing? Not, pray for the troops. Not, let's wait for the facts. Not, let's figure out what went wrong. No, we immediately start hearing, this is Trump's fault. If ICE and the feds weren't in these cities, this wouldn't have happened. If National Guard troops hadn't been on the streets, this wouldn't have happened. They're already trying to connect. ICE going into sanctuary cities, federal authorities cracking down on crime, National Guard protecting federal property. To this shooting, as if that alone somehow pulled the trigger. They're trying to create this narrative that enforcing the law is the problem, not the person who actually committed the act. A photo starts circulating online, people saying, this might be the shooter. We don't know with 100% certainty at first, but social media doesn't care. X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, is already on fire. And this is why I go to aggregators and independent sources. I want to see what every side is saying, not just one filtered narrative. Because in situations like this, you can literally watch a story being built in real time. Then we see the footage of one of the soldiers being airlifted out, and the president issues a statement. He calls the attacker an animal, says this person will pay a very steep price, and he praises the National Guard and law enforcement as great people and makes it clear the office of the presidency stands with them. That's the right tone toward the troops. But here's where things get dangerous. While investigators are still piecing together what happened, the propaganda machine is already in full swing. The narrative is being constructed before the facts are fully in. We flip over to MSNBC, CNN, all the usual suspects, and what are we hearing? Trump created this climate. Trump militarized the streets. People see uniforms and feel occupied. His policies are provoking violence. They're not focused on the shooter's background, motives, ideology, or how he got here. Instead, they're hyper-focused on turning this into a story about Trump and federal enforcement. We've got pundits acting shocked that National Guard troops, SWAT teams, ICE officers, and Border Patrol wear tactical vests and uniforms. Like that's some new development. People in America see law enforcement and military-style uniforms every single day. That's not some shocking revelation. That's standard. So when you hear this rhetorical framing, understand this is the first step in building a narrative, not reporting facts. It's not about what actually happened. It's about who they want you to blame. We will look at this next clip, then we get the next major update.
According to the National Fraternal Order of Police, as of October 31st, there have been 285 officers shot in the line of duty, 38 of them killed. There have been 58 ambush-style attacks against members of law enforcement during that time, including 19 of whom were killed. We've done a lot of reporting in this space, and we also know that the Department of Homeland Security has been sounding the alarm on this threat environment, and law enforcement officials coming under a magnifying glass. From January 21st, 2024 through November 21st, 2024, there were just 19 reported assaults against ICE law enforcement. That same number 1 year later, 238 reported assaults, just to give you a sense of what officers are up against and that threatened environment that they are facing when they are patrolling the streets of America.
He resided in Bellingham, Washington, with his wife and, we believe, 5 children.
According to investigators, Lakanwal settled in Bellingham as a refugee from Afghanistan 4 years ago.
What we know about him is that he drove his vehicle across country from the state of Washington with the intended target of coming to our nation's capital.
Local, state, and federal court records don't show any criminal history before his arrest this week in Washington, D.C.
This was not just an attack. It was a direct challenge to law and order in our nation's capital. And the individual will be made fully accountable.
Okay, as we've seen from that clip, the president addresses the country and says that based on the Department of Homeland Security's information, the suspect is an Afghan national brought into the country under the Biden-era Afghanistan evacuation program in 2021. Someone whose legal status was extended under legislation signed by President Biden. Later reporting confirms his asylum claim was filed under the current administration. It was approved this year. He entered legally through an official program. Those are objective facts. There is no spin there. And what does this tell us? It tells us we have a vetting problem. Not just a border problem, a vetting problem. The issue is no longer, how did he sneak in? The issue is, how did he get waved in? This is where people get uncomfortable, but we have to be honest. When you let millions and millions of people into the country in a very short time, from all over the world, from unstable regions, from places with limited documentation, you cannot vet everyone properly. You can say you did. You can check a box. You can stamp a form. But you don't actually know who every single person is, what they believe, what they've done, or what they're capable of. And the president in his address points out that the prior administration allowed in massive numbers of people from all over the world, including Afghanistan, and that this policy now poses a serious national security risk. He uses very harsh language, and especially when he references certain communities and examples like fraud in Minnesota tied to Somali networks. The media is going to zero in on those comments and ignore the larger point. Our immigration and asylum vetting system is broken, and people are getting hurt because of it. You might not like his tone, but the core concern, a failed vetting process, is real. Now watch how this plays out. Instead of saying, we failed to vet this guy. The program was too rushed. We didn't have enough safeguards. You're going to hear, this is Trump's fault for putting the guard on the streets. This is what happens when you militarize cities. This is about climate, rhetoric, Trump inciting violence. They'll try to flip it into, if the National Guard wasn't there, this wouldn't have happened. So let me flip that. If we never brought someone into this country who clearly didn't share our values and respect for life, someone who shouldn't have been here in the first place, do you really think this would have happened? Which seems more logical. Blame the troops who were doing their job and got ambushed, or blame the system that let a dangerous person in and then approved his asylum. You decide. Now I want you to pay attention to another piece of this puzzle. The rhetoric coming from some politicians and media figures. when you constantly tell people ICE is a terrorist organization. Federal law enforcement is out to disappear you. The president has declared war on immigrants. The government is hunting you down. What do you think that does to someone who's already unstable? What do you think that does to someone who already hates this country? What do you think it does to a person with extremist leanings? It radicalizes them. And the same people who spend months and years pushing that framing will then stand in front of a camera and say, "We don't know how something like this could happen." Yes, you do. You helped create the environment for it. If you convince people that the government is illegitimate, law enforcement is evil, and the president is a dictator attacking them personally, somebody out there will eventually decide to take matters into their own hands. That's not a complex conspiracy. That's basic human behavior. Look at the numbers. Attacks on law enforcement are up. Ambushes are up. Targeted shootings are up. And every time something like this happens, instead of having a serious conversation about anti-police rhetoric, anti-ICE hysteria, anti-National Guard propaganda, broken immigration systems, we get, this is Trump's fault. This is the right wing's fault. This is because troops were deployed. Anything to avoid responsibility. It's easier to blame one man than confront the reality that millions of people are being programmed to hate their own country, its institutions, and anyone in uniform. So let's recap the objective truths. 1. 2 National Guard soldiers were targeted and shot near the White House. 2. The suspect is an Afghan national who came here through a Biden-era program. 3. His asylum claim was approved just this year. 4. Attacks on law enforcement have been rising. 5. The media is already trying to shift blame toward Trump and his enforcement posture. 6. Very few people want to talk about the actual vetting failure that allowed this to happen. You can slice it however you want, but it always comes back to the same conclusion. We are letting in people we cannot properly vet, and then we're shocked when some of them do exactly what unstable, radicalized people do. That's not sustainable. That's not moral. And it's definitely not compassion. Look, you don't have to like Trump. You don't have to like his tone, his tweets, his speeches, his comments, his personality. But you cannot keep pretending that our borders are fine. Our vetting is fine. Our refugee programs are perfect. Our rhetoric has no consequences. While National Guard troops are getting shot in the streets of Washington, D.C., at some point, we have to stop treating this as just another partisan talking point and accept that this is a national security issue. If you import chaos, don't be surprised when chaos shows up at your doorstep. If you normalize hatred against law enforcement, don't act shocked when someone decides to pull a trigger. If you call enforcement of existing law war on the people, don't act confused when people respond like they're in a war. We can pray for the soldiers and their families, and we should. But we also have to demand better from the people making these decisions. Better vetting, better policies, better honesty from the media, and less propaganda that fuels this kind of violence, because if nothing changes, this won't be the last time we're talking about a tragic attack near the White House. And that's the part nobody on TV wants to say out loud. Thanks once again, y'all. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one.